From one troubled neighbour to another, Pakistan has sent a delegation to India. They crossed over at the Wagah border on Sunday. Today they held talks with officials in India, in New Delhi. But what were these talks about? The Indus Water Treaty. It was signed way back in 1960. This treaty decides how India and Pakistan share the Indus River waters. The last round of talks was held in Pakistan, so this time the delegation came to India. Politically, it does not have any significance because these talks are never disrupted. Just think about it. The treaty was signed in 1960, and since then, India and Pakistan have fought 3 wars, dozens of border incursions, infiltrations, terror attacks, but through all of it, the treaty survived. And frankly, it's a surprise. There have been 117 rounds of Indus water talks. The one held today was the 118th edition, 118. How has this treaty survived for 62 years? Because of 2 reasons. Number one, India's refusal to weaponize or politicize the Indus waters. India has an advantage that India refuses to use. And reason number 2, Pakistan's dependence on the shared water. Pakistan needs this treaty, so they do not violate it. And we'll explain why, but first some basic facts. The Indus Water Treaty covers 6 rivers. India has full access to the 3 eastern ones, Sutlej, Beas and Ravi. And Pakistan has access to the 3 western ones. That's Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. At the same time, India can also generate electricity from these western rivers. In other words, India can build dams. And Pakistan does have the right to object. And when that happens, when Pakistan objects, there must be a negotiated settlement. That's what the treaty says. Now, Pakistan cannot survive without this treaty because 80% of their agricultural fields depend on Indus waters. What's worse, Pakistan cannot control these waters. The Indus originates somewhere near Tibet. It flows through Kashmir into Pakistan, and from there it empties into the Arabian Sea. That is the Indus trajectory. So India is located higher up the stream, while Pakistan is located further down, which means India controls the river flow into Pakistan, and that is a lot of strategic advantage. If India wants to, it can flood Pakistan. If India wants to, it can also trigger a drought in Pakistan, by turning off the taps, reducing the water flow. India can build infrastructure and do all of this. But India hasn't done it. And that's what we're discussing tonight. Why has India not used this advantage? What would be the consequences of such a move? Would it be legally sound? The answer to the last one, would it be legally sound, is no, it will not be. The Indus Water Treaty cannot be cancelled unilaterally. Let me tell you what it says. The provisions of this treaty shall continue in force until terminated by a duly ratified treaty concluded for that purpose between the 2 governments. In simpler words, it means cancellation requires both sides to agree, India and Pakistan. Having said that, India can still go ahead. Yes, it would violate the rules, but remember, we're talking about Pakistan. They don't believe in rules. They don't play by the rules. Cross-border terrorism and infiltration is breaking all the rules. So India is under no moral pressure to uphold this treaty. You see, all treaties are based on certain understandings like sovereignty, like security. Pakistan has already violated all those understandings. So India's decision, if it chooses to walk out of the Indus Water Treaty, would be a response, not an escalation. But we doubt India will do that. 2 reasons for that. Number one, such a move could affect India's global standing. India is seen as a responsible international player, not an unreliable partner that violates treaties. And number 2, India has never initiated a war. There's no reason to believe that India will now start a water war with Pakistan. And beyond these 2 reasons, there's a third one, which is humanity. Floods and droughts affect ordinary citizens, in this case, the ordinary citizens of Pakistan. Their rulers will still live in luxury. The people will suffer. So no Indian government has taken this drastic step of causing a flood or a drought in Pakistan. Despite all the cross-border terrorism, all the anti-India activism, all the border incursions, India has never violated the Indus Water Treaty. It came quite close to doing so in 2016 after the Uri attack. India was rethinking the treaty, remember. The Indus water talks were also suspended. But in the end, New Delhi relented. And don't get me wrong, we're not saying that India must engineer droughts or floods in Pakistan, or that ordinary Pakistani should suffer. We're talking about leveraging, not weaponizing. And these are 2 different things. Perhaps India can push for a renegotiation or add new terms to the existing treaty. Basically, utilize its strategic edge over the Indus River. Today's meeting suggests the opposite. India is 100% committed to the Indus Treaty, it said. The question is, how long will that commitment continue? Just like droughts affect ordinary Pakistanis, terrorism affects ordinary Indians. And for New Delhi, that must be priority number one. I'll end with the words of Prime Minister Narendra Modi in 2016. Blood and water cannot flow together. WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.